interesting facts. Below is a list of Doctor Strange hidden truth and facts you probably don't know. Before becoming the Sorcerer Supreme, Stephen Strange received training at an Eastern monastery. Benedict Cumberbatch spent his gap year volunteering as an English teacher at a Buddhist monastery in Darjeeling, India. He had stated that the experience was very profound and influential on his life, and sought to draw from this experience in preparing for the role. Benedict Cumberbatch was the first choice and was offered the lead role of Stephen Strange, but he initially had to decline due to his theater commitments playing Shakespeare's Hamlet, which clashed with the film's proposed shooting date. When the release date was pushed back from July 2016 to November 2016, he was able to commit to shooting. Joaquin Phoenix was the studio's second choice for the lead role but, after a few months of deliberation, eventually turned down the offer due to his reluctance to do a multi-picture deal that was required by the studio if he signed on. While filming, Benedict Cumberbatch walked into a comic book store, in full costume, and bought an actual Doctor Strange comic. Doctor Strange's creators, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, based his appearance on Hollywood actor Vincent Price. The character even bears the middle name of Vincent. Astrophysicist Adam Frank served as a science consultant on the film, to advise on how to portray changes in the human experience of space and time. Frank also helped Marvel conceive their ideas for the multiverse, as well as suggest dialogue and belief stances for the characters. Although this is Doctor Strange's first outing in a MCU solo movie, the character has been teased in earlier movies. In Thor, 2011, the Orb of Agamotto can be seen among the treasures in Odin's treasure chamber. In Thor, The Dark World, 2013, the Crossroads is among the various phrases written on Selvig's chalkboard. The Crossroads is another dimensional reality that has a prominent role in the Doctor Strange comics. In Captain America, The Winter Soldier, 2014, Jasper Sitwell mentions Stephen Strange as one of the high-risk targets that Hydra keeps under surveillance. Benedict Cumberbatch states that the spiritualism of Doctor Strange is what appeals to him the most about the role. I'm very excited about that spiritual dimension. It's something that's been a huge part of my life. I meditate a lot. That's a huge tool in trying to calm myself, get away from the crazy circus of it all, have a focused mind as well as be a kinder, considerate person in the world, said Cumberbatch. Tilda Swinton's children were crew members on the film. Her daughter worked in the costume department and her son in the art department designing planets. Director Scott Derrickson is a big fan of Doctor Strange, and spent his own money on a concept video he pitched to Marvel so that he could get the job of directing the film. Benedict Cumberbatch received help with finger-tutting movements from dancer J-Funk, to make the spell-casting gestures look fluid and agile. In the comics, the Ancient One is an old man. In this film, the Ancient One is played by a woman. This was a deliberate decision as Scott Derrickson felt the Ancient One was a title rather than a person. Additionally, this was also intended to avoid the risk of portraying any negative racial stereotypes, as the appearance of the Ancient One in the comics is based around the Tibetan monks. In the comics, Stephen Strange had a younger sister named Donna, who died when he was young, and motivated him into becoming a doctor. Lulu Wilson was cast as Donna in the film and shot some scenes, but they were cut out for running time purposes. The filmmakers defined the use of magic was based on dimensional traveling and shifting. We didn't want magic to simply be people throwing and blocking bolts of lightning. This is the ability to tap into different dimensions and pull aspects of those dimensions into our realm. According to Kevin Feige, the concept of magic in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is inspired by The Matrix, 1999, and the fantasy works of Stanley Kubrick and Hayao Miyazaki. Have you watched the Cosmos, 1980, series? That's magic, the quantum physics. If somebody knew how to tap into that stuff, what's the difference between that and magic? You don't get into it in Harry Potter, but if a scientist went to Hogwarts, he'd find out how some of that stuff is happening. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but there will be some of that. particularly for a character like Doctor Strange, who goes from a man of science to a man of faith and who traverses both worlds. And sometimes there won't be an answer. Sometimes he'll want an answer. How is this happening? And nothing, said Feige. In designing the Eye of Agamotto, creator of Doctor Strange Steve Ditko drew inspiration from the real-world charm, the all-seeing eye of the Buddha, known among the Buddhists as the amulet of snail martyrs, a Nepali symbol meant to protect its wearer from evil. First Marvel Studios movie to feature the new Marvel Studios logo fanfare composed by Michael Giacchino at the start of the film. Michael Giacchino also scored the rest of the music of the film. Previous Marvel Studios films featured the original logo that can also been seen in other Marvel movies such as the X-Men series. This logo was sometimes accompanied by the fanfare composed by Brian Tyler, which was first heard in Thor: The Dark World. Morgan Freeman, Ken Watanabe and Bill Nighy were considered for the role of the Ancient One. The film contains references to the Doctor Strange comic The Oath. Nicodemus West and Christine Palmer make an appearance. Doctor Strange engages in a spirit fight. The Cloak of Levitation displays sentience. Scott Derrickson admitted that the MCU films dedicate little time to developing antagonists, so he just hoped to show Kaecilius's point of view, describing the character as a villain of ideas with watertight logic, like Chondo from S7N, 1995. Scott Derrickson wanted the Ancient One to be an Asian woman, but felt that it would be perceived as exploiting Asian fetish and a fanboy's dream girl. He decided to cast a non-Asian actor in the role, but to still take the opportunity to cast an amazing actress in a male role. He thus wrote the role of the Ancient One especially for Tilda Swinton, feeling that she was the obvious choice for such a mystical and mysterious role. Originally, the film was to feature a prologue set in CERN, Conseil Européen pour la Recherche Nucléaire, also known as the European Organization for Nuclear Research, and would feature a discussion on parallel dimensions. The filmmakers felt this was too scientific for a magic-based story, and removed it. Cinematographer Ben Davis cites the Disney experimental film Fantasia, 1940, as a visual influence on the film. It has a very psychedelic grounding, and most of the work is about other dimensions. Near the start of the movie, when there is a wide shot of the Manhattan skyline, Tony Stark's Avengers building can be seen. Kaecilius was named after the word Caecilian, a rare snake-like amphibian. At one point, Doctor Strange considers using an axe as a weapon. This is a homage to the 2016 Doctor Strange comics, where he was severely depowered and took to wielding an axe, called Ankarumas. In a fight, Master Mordo has a relic that he calls the Staff of the Living Tribunal. In the comics, the Living Tribunal is an incredibly powerful cosmic entity. The scene where Stephen trains his broken hand by writing his name over and over comes from J. Michael Straczynski's Doctor Strange comic. Christine Palmer is one of a trio of women known as the Night Nurse in the Marvel Comics universe, making cameos in various comic books. Doctor Strange, 2016, marks the 14th film to be released by Marvel Studios for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. According to James Gunn, Stan Lee's cameo in the film is one of the 4 Lee cameos that was filmed in one day itself. Gunn said that he only filmed 3, being this film, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 2, and another title that he did not reveal. Several one-liners with Lee were filmed and considered, but the one that appears in the film was chosen by Scott Derrickson himself. Chapter 2 of Phase 3 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In 1992, Wes Craven was set to direct. Later in 2001, David S. Goyer was going to write and direct. In 2008, Guillermo del Toro was brought on as director. In 2014, Mark Andrews, Jonathan Levine, Nicolas Jarcel, Scott Derrickson and Ines Riolite were on the short list to direct. In the end, Derrickson was officially announced to helm the film. Due to the popularity of the Marvel films, Rachel McAdams had a change of stance and became interested in appearing in any of the MCU films. Unknowingly, She was the first choice for the role of Christine. McAdams was also previously approached by Jon Favreau as the first choice to play Pepper Potts in Iron Man, but she declined. Scott Derrickson wanted to feature the Dream Demon Nightmare in his World a Dream Dimension, but decided to save him for a sequel. Scott Derrickson describes this film as enabling a Marvel Comics multiverse to exist. What we've wanted from the beginning was to bring in these other dimensions and realities, which is something Doctor Strange can do, much like how the early Doctor Strange comics broke open the Marvel comic book universe into the Marvel multiverse. This film serves the same function. In the comics it ended up being decades of new stories, and I think this movie will do the same thing. One of the majors at Camertage is Tina Minoru, Linda Louise Duan. Tina is the mother of Nico Minoru, a member of the Runaway Group of Heroes, which is expected to be adapted into a TV series, Runaways. Tina wields a staff in the film. This is the Staff of One, a powerful magical weapon that Nico eventually wields. Benedict Cumberbatch embarked on a strict training regimen by hitting the gym with the use of a personal trainer to beef up for the role. Cumberbatch would drink protein shakes and eat double the amount of calories. Mads Mikkelsen's brother Lars Mikkelsen was the voice of Doctor Strange in the Danish dub of Doctor Strange, 2007. Lars had also played an antagonist in Benedict Cumberbatch's show Sherlock, 2010. Strange's predecessor as the Master of the New York Sanctum Sanctorum is named Daniel Drum, Mark Anthony Brighton. Daniel is the brother, and later spirit assistant, of Jericho Drum, known as the Voodoo Priest Brother Voodoo. The first building-bending battle between Caecilius and the Ancient One was filmed on the road Great Scotland Yard in central London. Opposite the end of the street, but not visible during the scene, is the Sherlock Holmes pub on Northumberland Street. Gary Oldman and Mads Mikkelsen were considered for the role of Baron Mordo. In a fight, Doctor Strange frightens and then hits Caecilius over the head with an object. This object is the brazier of Pongaliath, a relic used for transportation. The design of Dark Dimension is based on the works of Steve Ditko for Doctor Strange comics in the 60s. Ditko was co-creator of Doctor Strange together Stan Lee in 1963. Mordo repeatedly states that the bill comes due. This comes from the 2016 Doctor Strange comics, where Doctor Strange received constant warnings of the bill coming due for wielding magic. In consequence, he attracted the attention of the anti-magic scientist The Empirical, who severely depowered the magicians of Earth. There is a disclaimer at the end of the closing credits warning viewers about the dangers of distracted driving. This is a reference to Strange's catastrophic car accident, which was caused by him looking at an electronic device while driving. But, as entertainment writer Bill Bradley pointed out in a piece for the Huffington Post, it is also a continuation of the joke that repeats several times throughout the movie about essential warnings appearing after, not before, instructions. Colin Farrell, Jake Gyllenhaal, Tom Hardy, Ethan Hawke, Jack Huston, Oscar Isaac, Jared Leto, Matthew McConaughey, Ewan McGregor, Keanu Reeves, Justin Theroux, Jon Hamm, Johnny Depp, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt were all considered or rumored for the role of Stephen Strange. This is the fourth film in Rachel McAdams' career in which she plays a love interest to a man who can travel through or otherwise manipulate time. The others were The Time Traveler's Wife, 2009, Midnight in Paris 2011, and About Time, 2013. In none of these four movies does McAdams' character herself get to participate in these time travels or manipulations. One of the majors at Camertage is Hamir, Toporis Niwiro. In the Marvel Comics, Hamir was Hamir the Hermit, Wong's father. In a fight, Wong wields the Wand of Watum, a magical artifact from the Doctor Strange comics. Mads Mikkelsen is the third Hannibal Lecter actor to appear in a Marvel film, after Brian Cox, William Stryker in X-Men 2, 2003, and Anthony Hopkins, Odin in the Thor films. The Zealot's makeup took between 2 to 3 hours to apply. One of the Zealots is named Lucian, who is dressed in black. He is based on Black Wolf, a Marvel character who dressed in black and possessed super strength. The film's cast includes one Oscar winner, Tilda Swinton, and 3 Oscar nominees, Benedict Cumberbatch, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Rachel McAdams. Benedict Cumberbatch and Rachel McAdams are the 5th and 6th, respectively, Sherlock Holmes actors to appear in a Marvel Comics-based feature. Sir Christopher Lee played Holmes in Sherlock Holmes and the Leading Lady, 1991, and was the enemy in Captain America II, Death Too Soon, 1979. Jeremy Brett played Holmes in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, 1984, and was in The Incredible Hulk, of Guilt, Models and Murder, 1978. Robert Downey Jr. played Sherlock Holmes in the Guy Ritchie film series, and appeared as Tony Stark Iron Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sir Ian McKellen played Holmes in Mr. Holmes, 2015, and appeared as Eric Lencher Magneto in the X-Men film series. This is the second live-action adaptation of Marvel Comics' Doctor Strange. The first was Doctor Strange, 1978. Mads Mikkelsen admitted that with all the computer-generated imagery he got a bit lost on how to film his scenes, especially during the mirror dimension scenes. Patrick Dempsey publicly expressed an interest in playing Stephen Strange. Mads Mikkelsen had been under consideration for the role of Dr. Stephen Strange back in 2013. One of the relics in the New York Sanctum is a white mask with an ankh next to it. This is a reference to the Moon Knight, a superhero who was empowered, and sometimes possessed, by the Egyptian moon god Khonshu and wielded a stick shaped like an ankh. Rachel McAdams played Irene Adler in both of Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes movies. Irene is a love interest to Sherlock, played by Robert Downey Jr., who also plays Iron Man, another Marvel character. In this movie, she plays Dr. Christine Palmer, past love interest of Benedict Cumberbatch, who currently plays Sherlock Holmes in BBC's popular and critically acclaimed show, Sherlock. Part of the filming happened in Nepal, Asia. In the Doctor Strange comic The Oath, Claire Temple called Doctor Strange Sherlock. In this film, Doctor Strange is being played by Sherlock Holmes actor Benedict Cumberbatch, and Rachel McAdams was in the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes films as Sherlock Holmes' love interest Irene Adler. Caecilius, Mads Mikkelsen, is trapped by a relic called the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak. In the comics, the Crimson Bands were a spell Doctor Strange uses. Doctor Strange is repeatedly addressed as Mr. by other characters. This is a homage to the original concept of Doctor Strange, where the creator Steve Ditko was initially willing to name the character as Mr. Strange, but later changed it since it sounded similar to Mr. Fantastic. Reed Richards. Both Chiwetel Ejiofor and Benedict Wong also starred in The Martian, 2015. The mirror dimension was influenced by the works of mathematical painter M.C. Escher and the fractal concept. Just before he crashes, Doctor Strange is told about a 22-year-old woman with schizophrenia with an electronic implant in her brain struck by lightning. This is a reference to the superhero Madeline Joyce, also known as Miss America, who, in the comics, received superpowers when an experimental electrical device her uncle was testing was struck by lightning. In the comics, Miss America is now the identity of another superhero called America Chavez, who inherits the original America's powers. Benedict Cumberbatch and Chiwetel Ejiofor previously starred together in 12 Years a Slave, 2013. Mads Mikkelsen is the 6th actor to play a villain in both a comic book film and a James Bond film. Sir Christopher Lee was the main villain in The Man with the Golden Gun, 1974, and Captain America II, Death Too Soon, 1979. Louis Jordan was the main villain in Octopussy, 1983, and Swamp Thing, 1982. Christopher Walken was the main villain in A View to a Kill, 1985. And Batman Returns, 1992. Benicio del Toro was a supporting villain in License to Kill, 1989, and Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014. Christoph Waltz was the main villain in Spectre, 2015, and The Green Hornet, 2011. Each Doctor Strange feature has starred a Star Trek actor. Michael Ansara, who was the Klingon Kang in Star Trek 1966, voiced the Ancient One, in an uncredited role, in Doctor Strange 1978. Jeffrey Combs, who has played various Star Trek roles, was Doctor Strange in Dr. Mordrid 1992, a version with names changed. George Takei, who was Hikaru Sulu in Star Trek 1966, was Wong in Spider-Man, Sins of the Fathers Chapter 1, Doctor Strange, 1996. Paul Nakachi appeared in Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, The Homecoming, 1993, and was Wong in Doctor Strange, 2007. Kevin Michael Richardson, who voiced several aliens in Star Trek Into Darkness, 2013, was Baron Mordo in Doctor Strange, 2007. Benedict Cumberbatch, who was Khan Noonien Singh in Star Trek Into Darkness, 2013, stars in this film as Doctor Strange. Though uncredited, Dan Harmon was a consultant and revised the screenplay during post-production and reshoots. Caecilius wields the daggers of Davarith. In the comics, this was a spell used by Shilmar the Shadow Queen, a powerful sorceress who lost her soul. Benedict Cumberbatch and Rachel McAdams play love interests in this film. In Sherlock Holmes, 2009, Rachel McAdams portrayed Holmes' love interest Irene Adler. On the BBC series Sherlock, 2010, Cumberbatch portrayed Sherlock Holmes. The second time that Strange goes into the library to request reading material on astral projection from Wong, he calls Wong Beyoncé and finds it hard to believe that Wong had never heard of her. A little later, when Strange is opening gateways in the library in order to borrow more books, Beyoncé's song, Single Ladies, Put a Ring on It, can clearly be heard coming from Wong's headphones. As Stephen Strange was preparing the night of his crash, the watch he placed on his wrist read Tuesday, February 2, 2016. The time is 5 hours, 16 minutes, and 20 seconds. In the comics, the actual ruby of Satorak was touched by King Marco, which is where the Juggernaut gets his strength and armor. Stan Lee, Man on the Bus reading The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. The book is a recounting of Huxley's experience taking psychedelic drugs, with particular mention of their use in perceiving art. Doctor Strange comics have long been associated with psychedelic drugs because of their use of surreal images to portray magical dimensions and beings. Marvel has always insisted that drugs played no part in the creation of Doctor Strange, which may be why Lee is laughing at the book.
Spoilers.
The trivia items below may give away important plot points. Benedict Cumberbatch recommended that he play Dormammu during production, and Scott Derrickson liked the idea of Cumberbatch playing hero and villain. That role was an ultra-inflated version of Strange. An ego run amok. There's something interesting about this confrontation of this tiny guy with the power of time and this monstrous conqueror. I couldn't think anybody to interact with Benedict than he, himself. The Eye of Agamotto is the Time Stone, one of the Infinity Stones. Chronologically, it is the fifth Infinity Stone to appear, after the Space Stone, the Tesseract from Captain America, the First Avenger, 2011, the Reality Stone, the Ether from Thor, The Dark World, 2013, the Power Stone, the Orb from Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014, and the Mind Stone, Loki's Scepter, Vision's power source from Avengers Assemble, 2012, and Avengers, Age of Ultron, 2015. During the mid-credits scene, when Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch, is talking to Thor, he can be seen wearing yellow gloves as an homage to his comic book costume, where he had to wear them to protect his hands. During the scene where Doctor Strange drives and crashes his car, the song playing is Interstellar Overdrive by Pink Floyd. Doctor Strange appears on one of Pink Floyd's album covers, A Saucer Full of Secrets. However, this album does not contain the song playing. Mads Mikkelsen described Caecilius as an anti-hero from another dimension who is a villain in this dimension. He believes that the Ancient One is just protecting her own power base and that the world may be better off if we were to allow some of these other things through. He's a man who believes in something else than the hero. He is the antagonist, of course, but he's not necessarily wrong. He wants to make the planet look wonderful and to save the world, but he has a different way of doing it. The mid-credits scene with Thor was directed by Thor, Ragnarok, 2017. Director Taika Waititi. When Caecilius and his zealots are dragged to the dark dimension at the film's climax, they are transformed. Their new form is dark and mottled, with light bursting from where their eyes once were, making them resemble the Mindless Ones, the creatures that populate Dormammu's dark dimension in the original comics. Caecilius was a minor villain in the comics, only an ally of Baron Mordo. In this film, he is a major villain based on Baron Mordo, nemesis of Doctor Strange, Kalu, a rival of the Ancient One and master of black magic, and the Mindless Ones, minions under the control of Dormammu. Scott Derrickson describes Doctor Strange as defined by loneliness and trauma. He's a character who had gone through so much trauma and was placed into a position between our world and other worlds, other dimensions. Literally, that's a lonely position. Strange transforms through suffering. He goes through this gauntlet of trauma and suffering, going all the way back to his childhood in the comics, but then he appropriates that suffering in a certain way that limits him, and then he goes through the loss of everything in a really painful, unbearable way, and eventually finds self-transcendence in something mystical. Just before having the car accident, Stephen is on the phone discussing potential patients. One patient mentioned is a U.S. Air Force colonel who was injured testing some experimental armor. Despite the similarities, it is unlikely that this is a reference to the injuries sustained by James Rhodes, also known as War Machine, Don Cheadle, Captain America, Civil War, 2016. Due to the time differences, the director Scott Derrickson has confirmed that by the time you've gone through his journey and you're into the second half of the movie, it's present day, meaning that the incident mentioned must have taken place at least a year ago. Not to mention that James Rhodes is clearly a lot older than the 35-year-old described. Some believe it is more likely that this refers to Justin Hammer's experiment in Iron Man 2, 2010, where Stark shows the videos of his competitor's armor research during the Senate hearing, and in Hammer's version the top half of the armor spins 180 degrees. Hammer states that the pilot survived, and Stephen Strange has a gold plate which reads 2016. Also, the car he is driving is a 2015-16 model Lamborghini Huracan. In the movie, Caecilius uses some pages from the Book of Cagliostro to contact Dormammu and extract power from the Dark Dimension. In the original comics, the Book of Cagliostro is used by Baron Mordo to travel in time. In real life, Cagliostro, 1743-1795, was a well-known medicine man and alchemist. In the movie, it is explained that Agamotto, first Sorcerer Supreme, created 3 seals in order to preserve planet Earth from the Dark Dimension, which are represented by symbols in the skylights of the Sanctum Sanctorums, New York, London and Hong Kong, and in the doors that connect them with the Temple of the Ancient One in Nepal. In the original comics, the symbol in the skylight of New York belongs to the Vishanti, union of the 3 powerful magical entities called Ashtar, Hoggoth and Agamotto. The film continues the tradition from Phase 2 films where a character is shown without an arm. It is a running gag in homage to Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. In this film, Hammer is shown demonstrating spell casting to Stephen, with the left arm missing. Other instances include Iron Man 3, 2013, Tony Stark cuts Aldrich Killian's arm during the climatic fight. Thor, The Dark World, 2013, Loki cuts Thor's arm to deceive and convince the Dark Elves on Svartalfheim. In the final battle, Malekith also loses an arm. Captain America, The Winter Soldier, 2014, Bucky Barnes loses his mechanical arm when fighting against Steve Rogers. This is also repeated in Captain America, Civil War, 2016, when Tony shoots off his arm at the Hydra Russian facility. Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014, Gamora cuts off Groot's arm at the beginning. Later Nebula cuts her mechanical arm to escape from Gamora. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 2013. SOS Part 2. Coulson loses his left hand. Avengers. Age of Ultron. 2015. Ultron severs Ulysses Klaue's arm. Ant-Man. 2015. As Yellow Jacket's suit is sabotaged, he loses his right arm first before imploding and dissipates into nothing. One of the patients mentioned to Doctor Strange while he is driving is a female with a brain implant that got hit by lightning. That may be a reference to Carol Danvers, also known as Miss Marvel. The film contains references to Doctor Strange. 2007. Dr. Strange has a female ally, Gina Atwater. Christine Palmer. The Ancient One's disciples travel the world. The Ancient One personally instructs Strange on reality warping. Wong trains Doctor Strange. Baron Mordo is black and develops a schism with the Ancient One. The main enemy is Dormammu, who wields minions on Earth. Dr. Strange uses the Eye of Agamotto to defeat during Dormammu. The Doctor Strange Facts and Truths.